a lot of blue eyes in this film. Hi, welcome to ABC's Film, where we watch movies that have won the Best Picture award at the Oscars. I'm Barry, that's Alex, and this week we are watching The Sound of Music. Okay, so The Sound of Music is the story of Maria, a nun or a nun in training, who gets sent away from her convent to look after this house and be nanny to 7 kids?
7 kids, yes.
Yeah, and she uses song and dance to bring the whole family together because they don't really get on with their father that much. And then Nazis show up and they have to escape.
I've not asked you where you and your family are going. Nor have you asked me why I'm here.
Well, apparently we're both suffering from a deplorable lack of curiosity.
So anyway, Alex, what did you think? First impression, Sound of Music.
Well, my first impression of this film was when I was like 5 years old. So when I was a kid, my mum used to play this film like quite a lot on the TV. And she would always, like, it was always on like a Sunday afternoon. She would have it on and I like grew to have an irrational and unnatural hate of the film. But it wasn't just watching the film as well. Like, there was this old channel on Sky that was called the Biography Channel and the History Channel and those kinds of,
I remember
like,
them.
kind of Hallmark level historical documentaries. And they
Yeah.
used to do a lot of stuff about old Hollywood. And there was always like, oh, what's the Von Trapp family up to now? We visit the Von Trapp family like 20 years later to see what they've got up to in their careers and stuff. And it's just like loads of random crappy documentaries like that I used to have to sit through as a kid.
Yeah.
And it's really, really made me dislike this film. And when we watched it, I've tried to kind of get over that and see it through fresh eyes. I still I hate it.
Well,
I really
I think-
loathe this film.
See, my first impression of it was because I'd seen bits and pieces when I was a kid. I may have watched it all the way
Yeah.
through, but I certainly didn't remember it. I just didn't think it was good.
I didn't think it... No.
So it might not be you. Like, the thing I've been saying in my head all week since we saw it is it's weaker than the sum of its parts.
Right, okay.
Like, every little bit about it is cool. Like, I think the acting's really good. I think some of the songs are good, although they're not catchy. Like, they haven't been in my head.
I think they are. I think the songs in this are really good overall.
Yeah, see, like,
I don't like them that much, but I think they are good songs.
Yes, but like with My Fair Lady, that stuff's still in my head, and
Yeah,
it's been like a
absolutely.
couple of months since we've seen it. With this one, it wasn't until today when I sort of looked up a couple before recording. They popped back in, but no, the cinematography's great. Everything's great about this film. I just think it's crap.
I'm Liesel. I'm 16 years old and I don't need a governess.
Well, I'm glad you told me, Liesel. We'll just be good friends.
I'm Friedrich. I'm 14. I'm impossible.
Really?
I think one of the main issues that I have with the film, there's no good arc throughout the film.
Yeah.
There's kind of, for the first hour, there's a bit of conflict where she's being introduced to the new family and that she doesn't get on well
Yeah.
with them. That gets resolved really quickly in like
It's
the first
a
hour and
song.
a quarter.
It's like one song, isn't it? It's like, oh my god, the father's a, like, you know, an emotionless
Yeah.
person who just hangs around the house.
He's
And
a
then-
real like disciplinarian with his kids, isn't he? Like
Yeah.
he treats them like they're military.
Yeah,
soldiers
they have
and
to
stuff.
like he'll like literally at the command of a whistle they have to do stuff.
Yeah.
And but then he hears them singing and he's like, oh.
Then he starts singing.
Yeah,
and
and then
it's all
he
happy
starts
again.
singing along as well,
Yeah.
and then they're all happy. There's
There's no-
Nazis.
I go to the hills when my heart is lonely.
The middle part of the film is really peculiar because you have the start where she's introduced to the family. Then it's kind of there's a conflict with the Baroness where there's this lady who comes to
Oh yes.
try and marry Mr. Von Trapp.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of conflict there, but you know throughout the entire thing that she's going to get married. He's going to get married to Von Trapp.
Yeah,
Von Trapp.
that I think I said when we were watching it, when she leaves, I was like, oh, so she was completely pointless then.
Yeah.
Because she didn't add anything
No.
whatsoever. It was just kind of, she turned up. At one point, she convinces Maria to leave. But, like, up to that point, she was really nice. And then it was just like, she was just like, oh, you should
Yeah.
leave. And then Maria left. And then she came
It's-
back. But there was no, like...
And in that scene,
just didn't work.
Yeah, in that scene where she convinces Maria to leave, there's really like, can you not realise you're being manipulated by going, oh, you know, he's in love with you and stuff. You should leave. It's not appropriate, and it's like that's obvious that she's trying to get rid of her. Can you not see that?
Yeah, it's like I likened it to Mrs. Danvers in the movie Rebecca. You know, where she's trying to convince her to kill herself. You know, and it's like, duh.
Yeah.
There's no need to feel so defensive, Maria. You are quite attractive, you know. The captain would hardly be a man if he didn't notice you.
Baroness, I hope you're joking.
What do you think of Julie Andrews?
Singing voice is really good. I don't like her performance in this really.
I think it's great. I
She's
think the
okay.
performance is fantastic.
How would you compare it to, since we watched it recently, My Fair Lady, Audrey Hepburn?
I think she's way better because Julie Andrews will do things like where she'll forget something in a room.
Yeah.
And she'll really dramatically just be like, oh, but it fits. Whereas in My Fair Lady with Audrey Hepburn, she'd do the over-the-top stuff and you'd be like, oh, God, like it just didn't... But Julie Andrews makes that over-the-top stuff seem natural.
How in the world did you climb up here?
It's how we always got into this room to play tricks on the governess. Louisa can make it with a whole jar of spiders in her hand.
Spiders?
Incidentally, I find Maria not particularly attractive in this, mostly because of her hair. Her hair just really annoys me. She's got that kind of like bowl cut kind of thing going on. That
I didn't notice it when we were watching it, but because you mentioned it, like afterwards, when I was watching a couple of clips earlier, I was like, oh yeah, that is a weird haircut.
It's just,
but I think all haircuts are weird when you start paying attention.
I don't know. It might be because she's a nun and she wants people to not find her as attractive. It might be a thing that when you're a nun, you're not supposed to have long hair because obviously they cover their hair up in the nun
with the fantastic neck,
the ruffles, the old
yeah.
kind of like rough thing they've got going on there, which is fantastic as well. Yeah, it's like a science fiction costume, isn't it? Like,
it is. Yeah, but that's another thing. Like the costumes were great. The sets were great. There was one set where, you know, Alex swore it was a soundstage. I swore it was real. We don't know.
Probably, I think it was.
I think like
the lighting
soundstage.
was very even. You never see changes in lighting from like clouds going by, as you would see if it were in real life.
Well, Reverend Mother, I hope this new infraction ends whatever doubt you may still have about Maria's future here.
I always try to keep faith in my doubts, Sister Bertha.
After all, the wool of a black sheep is just as warm. We are not talking about sheep, black or white, Sister Margareta.
I think this is like a film where kids can really get into it. I think My Fair Lady is probably a little bit complicated and a little bit weird. This story
is
really
very simple.
This is very straightforward. Like there's barely any conflict. There's not really much going on. There's not particularly much to follow. The characters are really well drawn. You know exactly like who
immediately you know who they are and where it's going to go.
And like the villain that they choose for the very end of the film, obviously the Nazis. Like that's just shorthand for evil, isn't it? Like you haven't got to explain that at all. It's just
and it comes
Nazis.
out, like the Nazis just kind of come out of nowhere. Like there's one character, the postman.
Yeah.
He keeps sort of popping up and he'll be like, "Oh, Nazis coming."
Yeah. No, he's throwing stones at the window to try and get Liesel's attention as the oldest daughter.
Yeah.
And then Christopher Plummer character's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, Hitler!" Then runs
and then
off.
just runs away.
It's like that's absolutely the worst reaction to like trying being caught on someone's property.
What are you doing there?
Oh, Captain Von Trapp. I was just looking for... I didn't see. I didn't know you were... Heil Hitler!
Everything that you sort of think about the story resolves itself. They get married, they're going to live happily ever after.
That's like 2 hours and 20 minutes into the film. The last 40 minutes or so.
That is the end of like the second act,
everything that's been built
when
up.
it should be the end of the third.
Incidentally, you mentioned that, and I think we had that conversation when watching the film, that it felt like it should have ended after the second act.
Yeah.
In Germany, originally, they wanted to cut the third act out because it featured the Nazis so heavily, and obviously Germany.
I think it would have been a better film.
Quite possibly. I don't think the marriage is a particularly dramatic ending, but then I don't like the ending that they have anyway. It's kind of... I know the folk festival scene where they're all singing there is very iconic in film history, and people seem to like it a lot.
With German, with German, with German.
So to carry on, sorry, he refuses to fight for the Nazis. So then they say, well, we're going to have to take you anyway. And he's like, oh, but not after my family performs at the jazz festival.
Yeah.
And then they perform at the jazz festival, and then they sort of slip out the back.
Yeah.
But then it's just like, oh, where did they go? And it cuts to them in the middle of the mountains, just walking along.
There's the whole convent scene, isn't it? Where they have to run away from the Nazis.
Oh yeah,
and
sorry,
they're
I forgot
trying to
about
go
that.
after
Yeah.
them. Incidentally, about that one point, I wanted to get a feel for where they were in relation to the other countries after watching the film.
Yeah.
So I looked it up. So Salzburg is on the border to Germany.
Yes.
And they want to run away to Switzerland. Switzerland is 550 miles away from Salzburg.
Well, they do say at one point, what about the kids? And she's like, well, they'll be fine.
Yeah, but it's kind of like they act as if they successfully evaded the Nazis by getting out of the convent, when in reality they have 550 miles to go before they get to safety. Yeah.
So that was our review of Sound of Music. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and join us in 2 weeks' time for Federico Fellini's La Strada.
Yeah, something like that, yeah, La Strada.
La Strada.
Good film.
Every night I bring her Frankfurter sandwiches, Frankfurter sandwiches. Oh, my baby loves those Frankfurter sandwiches, Frankfurter sandwiches. I try to win her with candy, ice cream and custard. But how she likes hot dogs with mustard.